Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and today I am here with
Dean Lyon.
at the MeCF 2016. Again, another interview, as you guys have been watching on the past few videos. And yeah, he is the.
I'm the CEO of Splinter Studios, and my passion is in doing visual effects and computer graphics.
Yeah, and explain to the viewers some of the movies you've worked on.
I worked on a lot of the Hollywood blockbusters. Probably the one that always comes back around is Lord of the Rings. I worked on all three, as well as Armageddon, Air Force One, Independence Day, to name a few.
Avatar,
Avatar.
Ex Machina, the Planet of the Apes films. So you've done a lot of movies, right? Now, what first made you want to get into effects, visual effects?
Well, I went to film school in Los Angeles, and I looked around, and everybody in there wanted to be a director. And I thought,
Okay.
is there really that many jobs for directors? And some of these guys and girls are actually downright talented. So I decided that would be interesting to get into editing,
Yeah.
because I felt as an editor I'd have a chance to affect the product creatively at the end. And right about that time, there was computerized editing, so it really kind of interests me that computers were suddenly being used to do things that traditionally was very craft-oriented. So the ironic thing about being in post-production is that's where visual effects grew from. It was in the edit bay that we began to experiment with using different devices and different techniques for creating what we now think of as visual effects.
And what would you describe, or how would you describe the difference between special effects and visual effects? Because I know there is a difference, and many people just group that as in one category, one group. How would you explain the difference in that?
Yeah, so special effects are typically the guys on set who create explosions, smoke, fire, rain, bullets, and what we do is we take that footage and then we put it inside the computer, make it 4 times bigger, stick the actors back into the scene because it was far too dangerous,
Yeah.
and create what we call visual effects because it's been through the computer.
Okay. And how would you describe the evolution of visual effects from its inception to where it is now?
Well, I always like to tell the story that I was doing visual effects before we had computers, so I guess in a way that was special effects. Some of the early days we began to call it special visual effects.
Okay.
But once we started using computers to do the end process, that was kind of the breakthrough point. And because it takes such intense rendering in such large computers, we started doing it for television long before we were doing it for feature films.
Okay. And in your discussion, you're talking about how there's this kind of gap in making human live action CGI humans. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so the talk was on the uncanny valley, which is really a term that was invented in discussing creating human-like robots. But in the movie and television world, we've been trying for years to try to do exactly that, solve that exact same problem, which is how do we create humans digitally and not have them turn out just a little bit strange or a little bit scary. And it turns out that what we're pushing against is what's called the uncanny valley. So there's a lot of people that are working on solving the problem, but what I talked about in my talk today is that we've been working on it for 30 plus years, and we may not be any closer than we were when we first started.
And you said when it came to the uncanny valley, the first entertainment medium that made of that breakthrough, you said it was video games. Can you elaborate as to why you project it would be video games first rather than movies or anything else?
Well, I think video games probably is on the cutting edge of the computer processing because they're used to doing everything in real time.
Yes.
Whereas we take a movie like Avatar or a movie like Lord of the Rings and it takes us years to finish it. These game guys, sure, it takes them a year or two to develop the games, but when the person plays it, it has to interact and allow multi-threaded storytelling all in real time. So the fact that it's working in real time gives us a chance to sort of test and retest different variations. I think we'll discover that's the breakthrough point.
So like different models in a sense in order to do that, and I guess in a sense, you do it, see what happens, and continue on from there, trying to improve basically.
Sure.
Okay. And I know many people would recognize your work from Lord of the Rings, but is there any movie that you would consider your favorite that you've worked on?
Oh, I don't know. I always fall back to Air Force One. That was a particularly interesting movie to be on at that time, and we were up against Titanic
Yeah.
for that movie.
So you said you worked on Lord of the Rings, you worked on Air Force One, Avatar, um, and you're talking about the Uncanny Valley. From the films you've worked on, however, how would you describe the Uncanny Valley as it's been progressed as you've worked on it?
Well, I think what I showed today in my talk is that we keep falling back on relying on real humans rather than actually making the breakthrough
Hmm.
of creating something completely digital.
Yeah.
And most of the technology we see today, the completely digital,
Hmm.
we're using, if nothing else, the motion capture of the humans. So we still have that human input into what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Now, in your presentation, you had an image that kind of struck me. It was the one of Frodo. He's looking over the waterfalls, and during that image, you explained how there's like multiple layers of that. How are you able to work with multiple layers in order to achieve that type of image in a scene?
Yeah, so I guess that's the art of what we call compositing.
Hmm.
Those are the 2D artists that end up with all of the pieces that exist in the scene, whether it's live action or 3D CGI, miniatures, bigatures. All those things come together into the compositor's lab, and then they have to put those together in a very realistic, painterly way.
Okay.
We rely very heavily on supercomputing.
Hmm.
So even though the software is available for anyone, you still have to count on having a very high-end computing platform.
Yes, and you specifically, when it comes to visual effects, what do you specifically work on?
Uh, Not really, I'm really not that much of a hands-on person,
Okay.
but I have to say that I work with DaVinci
Okay.
Resolve. Um,
Yeah, can you explain some of the other like programs you use or technology you use in order to kind of create those stunning visual effects?
yeah, I mean a lot of the stuff has sort of become democratized. In
Okay.
other words, people can afford to get their hands on most of these
Yeah, yeah,
tools.
fair enough.
But the challenge, I think, is the actual art and talent that goes into it, as well as the actual computing it takes to do very high-end stuff. So, like I mentioned in my talk, I do use all of the Adobe products.
Okay.
Um, uh, I've edited in a whole variety of different things, and I think uh, Blackmagic with the Resolve, which is the DaVinci, as well as Fusion, now has two really interesting tools that not only are accessible to the users, but also what the high-end people are using to finish things.
Nice. And I believe you have your own company that you run, if I'm not mistaken. What's it called again?
Yeah, I mentioned it was Splinter
Yes.
Studios.
And were you the only founder of it, or did other people help you, you know, like
Uh,
grow?
yeah, I mean, initially it's my idea. I do have a bunch of talented people from around the world that are involved, and we're actually in the process of raising
Yeah.
investments so that we can grow it to the point that it becomes a world contender.
Nice. And something I was kind of interested in, that was, yeah, I guess that's the word, interested in. And again, it goes again with the evolution of just CGI and this type of technology and how it's growing. Um, how do you think it's going to advance from here to like in a couple of years or in the future? How do you think it's going to advance?
Well, I always talk about holograms, but even holograms now
I
are
mean, they're interesting because
old hat. But my vision was that you'd walk into your living room and watch a movie and be able to walk around the characters in the
yeah,
movie and then take it even a step further and interact with
that'd be
them.
interesting. Actually, that'd be really
So
interesting.
let's go back to gaming and say it's multi-threaded storytelling. What if in gaming I could ask one of the characters a unique question and have them respond to me?
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting because I don't know if you heard, but I believe a couple of years ago they had this hologram of Tupac. Um, and normally when people think of holograms, they think of like I don't know blue or green color, right? But this hologram was like like Tupac, had his white pants and he was black or colored. So that was pretty interesting. And when I first saw that, I'm like, that kind of struck me how they did that. And do you think you as a visual visual effects designer, uh, do you think you're ever going to be able to reach that peak where you could actually make holograms and do that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so the hologram technology that was used for Tupac and Michael Jackson
Yeah.
is really Pepper's Ghost, which if you look that up, it's a very, very old practical technique. It's been around since the turn of the century.
Okay.
I think the real breakthrough on Tupac was the fact that we pulled up the footage, restored it from the past,
Yeah.
and made it feel as if he was there and interacting in the present.
Yeah.
That was really, and that was a complete and total visual effects exercise. So, what I'm kind of predicting is even a step beyond that, which is these characters are evolving and interacting as we talk to them,
Nice.
as we interact with them.
Now you worked in Benjamin Button, right? Right. Can you explain the process of how you were able to make Brad Pitt, look really old?
Well, so I should point out that on some of these movies I had teams of really good artists and
Yes.
technicians, and in some cases I was involved on a consulting level, an
Okay.
advising level, or maybe even a fix-it level.
Okay.
But the techniques that we used for Benjamin Button, as I pointed out in my talk, is really no different than what we're doing for Gollum or for any of these other characters that are pushing the uncanny valley. It's a lot to do with motion capture, a lot to do with a technique called facial capture, a lot of computing, and then a bit of art as well.
Okay. Now, out of all the characters you worked on, is there anyone that's your favorite?
They're all my favorite. The problem is, if you work on these things, you get involved in them,
Yeah.
and I guess my point in my talk today is that each one of those is a stage of growth that I've been through.
Yeah. Because you started off with Gollum in a sense,
We
right?
all remember our first car, then we remember
Oh, yeah.
our sports car, then we remember the car. We all have our
Yeah, it
favorite
grows, it
cars.
Yeah, it grows.
Can't really say one was better than the other.
No, if you want to go through that discussion, it really starts off, walking, then the bike, and then the car, or something like that. So, and basically, this is your third year at MCP, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anything that you particularly enjoy about MCP as a whole?
Well, I mean, I like the fact that we're supporting independent film. That's really my vision, is to create a strong independent film industry, particularly here in South Florida. And also because we get submissions from all over the world, as I mentioned tonight, there's some really high quality stuff going on in the independent film world, movies that people would be itching to see if they had the right opportunity to see them. So one way is to go to independent film festivals, but what we really need is, the channel.
Yeah.
Where's the Netflix for all of the independent filmmakers?
I don't know. Because some of them are getting Netflix deals. Some of them are still kind of just hunting around, seeing what happens. So yeah. Have you gone to any other film festivals?
Yeah, I've been involved in quite a number of film festivals.
Nice.
And have advised on getting film festivals started. Probably most of the ones in South Florida I've had some involvement with over the years. Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. I'm on the industry advisory board, as I am on the Palm Beach Film Festival. We did Geek Fest last year during SuperCon in Miami. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're also on the board for the Academy Awards for visual effects.
Well, not on the board
or
necessarily.
something like that. But
I get to vote on visual effects.
And how's the process for that exactly?
Oh, you have to watch every movie that's up for the. If you're a good judge, you watch every movie that's up for it. You generally put yourself aside if you've worked on something, although not everyone does that. But this year it was quite a challenge because there was 20 films nominated for visual effects.
Yeah.
When we did Return of the King, there was 5. So that was a total.
I believe this year you have Ex Machina and The Revenant with Mad Max Fury Road, and there's 2 other movies. The Martian, I believe, is it?
One would imagine Star Wars and The Martian.
And Star Wars, yeah. Star Wars and Martian. So, that's kind of an interesting batch of movies right there for the nomination.
I just posted on my Facebook page for Splinter Studios that I believe The Revenant is hands down the winner. And my concern is that it'll get lost in the noise of Star Wars.
Yeah, that one's definitely up for Best Picture, to be honest. And
Best Picture, Best
DiCaprio,
Director, Best Cinematographer,
Best Actor,
Best Supporting Actor. Best visual
Yeah,
effects.
it better be best actor because people are gonna riot if DiCaprio loses to like Steve Jobs.
He's never won.
No,
And so now is the opportunity to not only award him for the work he did
yeah.
on this movie, but all the other films he's
I
done.
mean, seriously, it's about time. Like, if he loses to, like Steve Jobs or something like that, or people are just gonna lose their shit.
He's a great actor, the guy
seriously.
that played Steve Jobs. I've heard a
I
lot
mean,
of
Mike
people
Fassbender, of
talking
course,
about
but
him.
it's like, I mean, when you think about it, it's like Steve Jobs, like, Steve Jobs or the
And
Reverend.
then in looking at supporting actresses, I had to go for Kate Winslet because there she is in Steve Jobs, but I didn't even realize it was her at
Yeah,
first.
me neither, me neither. Yeah, but supporting actress, that would be Kate Winslet. And I believe you also chose the batch for animated films. And there we have Anomalisa, Inside Out, When
Yeah.
Marnie Met something.
Yeah,
When
so
Marnie
our
met.
challenge with the animated features is once again 20 nominations, but also the chance of seeing all of them.
Yeah.
But also in my world, every time I look at an animated film, they all fall into their own particular style and genre.
Yeah.
So it's even harder than dramatic feature films because each one sort of has the goods of their particular work. So I think Inside Out is going to be hands down the winner.
I mean,
But
in a sense, it's kind of predictable because Disney and Pixar just kind of own that
and
category.
I like the style though
Yeah.
of Anomalisa.
I'm gonna see Anomalisa soon, and I'm gonna review it for you guys soon. And after that, I'll do my top 10 best and worst of the year. But yeah, because I think the only movie there that could probably give Inside Out a run for its money is Anomalisa, just because of its animation. I want to say Marnie. Marnie would probably give it also a run for its money because it is a Studio Ghibli film. Hayao Miyazaki. But in the past, I think only two Miyazaki films have ever won against Pixar movies. So yeah, and since you're on the board for not board, but you vote for animated film. Do you also vote for animated short film as well?
No, I don't deal with short films.
So overall, as a whole, from being on being a judge for the Academy, doing your visual effects, and having running your own company, what do you think is the best part of this journey?
Well, I think the best part of the journey has been watching the technology change and only get more and more powerful and more interesting, and also meeting and mentoring people along the way.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, this is Daniel Mart.
And Dean Lyon.
And hope you guys enjoy. Remember to subscribe, comment down below, like the video, and yeah, it's basically it for now. Me, CF 2016, signing off.